Developing solutions for Microsoft Azure AZ-204 exam questions have been updated for you to earn the related certification. Share with you some latest Microsoft AZ-204 exam questions. 1. You use Azure Table Storage to store customer information for an application. The data contains customer details and is partitioned by last name. You need to create a query that returns all customers with the last name Smith. Which code segment should you use? A. Table query. Generate filter condition, partition key, equals, Smith. B. Table query. Generate filter condition, last name, equals, Smith. C. Table query. Generate filter condition, partition key, query comparisons. Equal, Smith. D. Table query. Generate filter condition, last name, query comparisons. Equal, Smith. 2. You are building a website that uses Azure Blob Storage for data storage. You configure Azure Blob Storage lifecycle to move all blobs to the archive tier after 30 days. Customers have requested a Service Level Agreement (SLA) for viewing data older than 30 days. You need to document the minimum SLA for data recovery. Which SLA should you use? A. At least 2 days. B. Between 1 and 15 hours. C. At least 1 day. D. Between 0 and 60 minutes. 3. You are developing a software solution for an autonomous transportation system. The solution uses large datasets and Azure batch processing to simulate navigation sets for entire fleets of vehicles. You need to create compute nodes for the solution on Azure Batch. What should you do? A. In the Azure portal, create a batch account. B. In a .NET method, call the method batch client. Pool operations. Create pool. C. In Python, implement the class job add parameter. D. In Python, implement the class task add parameter. 4. You deploy an Azure App Service web app. You create an app registration for the app in Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, and Twitter. The app must authenticate users and must use SSL for all communications. The app must use Twitter as the identity provider. You need to validate the Azure AD request in the app code. What should you validate? A. HTTP response code. B. ID token header. C. ID token signature. D. Tenant ID. 5. You develop a serverless application using several Azure functions. These functions connect to data from within the code. You want to configure tracing for an Azure Function App project. You need to change configuration settings in the hostJSON file. Which tool should you use? A. Azure Portal. B. Azure PowerShell. C. Azure Functions Core Tools, Azure CLI. D. Visual Studio. 6. You are developing an ASP.NET Core website that uses Azure Front Door. The website is used to build custom weather datasets for researchers. Datasets are downloaded by users as comma-separated value (CSV) files. The data is refreshed every 10 hours. Specific files must be purged from the front door cache based upon response header values. You need to purge individual assets from the front door cache. Which type of cache purge should you use? A. Single path. B. Wildcard. C. Root domain. 7. You must implement Application Insights instrumentation capabilities utilizing the Azure Mobile Apps SDK to provide meaningful analysis of user interactions with a mobile app. You need to capture the data required to implement the Usage Analytics feature of Application Insights. Which 3 data values should you capture? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. A. Trace. B. Session ID. C. Exception. D. User ID. E. Events. 8. You develop an app that allows users to upload photos and videos to Azure Storage. The app uses a storage REST API call to upload the media to a blob storage account named Account 1. You have blob storage containers named Container 1 and Container 2. Uploading of videos occurs on an irregular basis. You need to copy specific blobs from Container 1 to Container 2 in real time when specific requirements are met, excluding backup blob copies. What should you do? A. Download the blob to a virtual machine and then upload the blob to Container 2. B. Run the Azure PowerShell command start Azure Storage blob copy. C. Copy blobs to Container 2 by using the put blob operation of the blob service REST API. D. Use as copy with the snapshot switch blobs to Container 2. 9. You are developing a software solution for an autonomous transportation system. The solution uses large datasets and Azure batch processing to simulate navigation sets for entire fleets of vehicles. You need to create compute nodes for the solution on Azure Batch. What should you do? A. In Python, implement the class task add parameter. B. In Python, implement the class job add parameter. C. In the Azure portal, create a batch account. D. In a .NET method, call the method batch client pool operations create job. 10. You are writing code to create and run an Azure Batch job. You have created a pool of compute nodes. You need to choose the right class and its method to submit a batch job to the batch service. Which method should you use? A. Job operations. Create job OB cloud job. Enable IEnumerable C cloud job. Commit async IEnumerable cancellation token D job operations. Enable job string IEnumerable E job operations. Enable job async string IEnumerable cancellation token.